To solve the chaos of internal terrorism, Uganda has finally crossed the border to pursue the Allied Democratic Forces in the Congo, sending a troop contingent force close to 2,000 soldiers who marched into the DRC after bombing and shelling campaign carried out last week. The UPDF now says they are pursuing the ADF in what has been a sharp diplomatic maneuver, one that ties in the United Nations, the DRC and Rwanda. The country's troops now find themselves back at the heart of adjudicating regional peace and stability. But will Uganda's voyage into the DRC be met with diplomatic fluidity or rather hard negotiations? Tonight on The Spot, we host Uganda's top diplomat and permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. He's joined by the Secretary General of Uganda's biggest opposition party, National Unity Platform, David Louis Rubongoya. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. Adonia and Davis, you are on the spot. A warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with you, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. What is Uganda's strategic objective in the Congo?
Thank you, Patrick, first of all, for having me here again. Uganda's strategic objective in Congo is security. Three things: security, security, security. As you are aware, we had bombings in this city, and they were not mysterious. They were planned and executed by the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces that are based in DRC. That's a story that is not under any dispute. Which leader in the world would sit back and allow his country to be bombed, destabilized, and not respond? And our strategic objective is security in the immediate term. In the mid-term, it's trade, and in the long-term, trade is a prosperous DRC trading and coexisting with Uganda.
So you launched bombing campaigns almost a week now, and the last time we heard hearing from the soldiers on the ground, they have not yet even reached the targeted area. They're still stuck somewhere. You have no precise information on whether the targets were hit. The soldiers are still on the foot, marching to where the planes bombed. Really, this is a bungled of operation.
Patrick, you are speculating operation. These are operational matters. Watch the space. Watch the space. The camps were hit. Watch the space.
There's nothing like...
Wait, Patrick.
Ambassador Adonia, we have heard the operation commander, Major General Muhanga, speak to journalists today that they have no single UPDF soldier has reached the base that was supposedly hit by the fighter jets. No one has reached there. And yet they are telling us that they were hit with precision. Where do they get that information if they have not reached? And how can they choose to go to an area with almost insufficient or zero terrain intelligence because they are stuck about 18 kilometers from the border? How do you choose to go to an area without understanding the area? And we hear their spokesperson saying their military equipment, they are stuck with their lorries and their tanks, and they can't move, like the Germans trying to fight Russia in the middle of the winter.
I think this is some kind of sensationalism. Now we are in a different era with technology. You don't need to walk to a place and see. There are many things in the crowd that can see. There is technology, and I can tell you that in the coming days you are going to see the results. So I think there are results. Of course, Congo terrain is difficult, you are right.
But do you agree that 1 week since the attack, no single Ugandan UPDF boot has arrived at the base of the ADF?
I don't know. These are operational matters.
May I tell you, Ambassador Adonia, that both the operation commander, Major General Muhanga, and the spokesperson of Operation Shuja have said to the journalists that they are stuck somewhere because of an unforgiving terrain.
They are stuck as people, but there is a lot of things going on in the air. The world has changed. This is not 1945. where the Germans were getting stuck with tanks and equipment. There is a lot of information gathering that happens. And these again are operational matters. They are better left to our colleagues in the UPDF and the intelligence community to talk about. I think we are picking on one aspect to really make a point.
No, Ambassador, with all respect, I'm only picking from what I've been told by the military, the spokesperson and the operation commander, who say that because of a bad terrain and bad roads, they cannot move. But okay, if we can leave that, what was the whole essence of using fighter jets, trying to hit a ragtag army, you know, scavenging in the forest? Are you trying to show some kind of force of your military equipment?
Come on, this is not a scavenging. These people can plan and execute bombs on the streets of Kampala, and they are based in the camps across the border. In the wisdom of our military people and the commander-in-chief, they deployed the adequate equipment to deal with the threat. You know, let's not second guess them. They know what they are doing, and they have done it in the past.
David Louis Rubongoya, where does the National Unity Platform stand on this? I'm asking this because I suppose in a time like this, when Uganda is facing an existential threat from terrorists, that is when you rally behind the flag and support the women and men in uniform who have put their lives in harm's way to protect Uganda. Is that how you look at it?
Thank you so much, and a very good evening to the viewers. Of course, from our perspective as a National Unity Platform, there are very many questions we're asking, and there are very few answers coming from those who rule over us. Of course, terrorism is a subject of international concern, and it must be condemned by all people of goodwill and good intentions. But the problem in this country is that a lot of citizens do not even have trust in the very institutions of the state. To know, I mean, I've seen a lot of commentary. You know, many Ugandans even questioning if this whole idea of ADF is the one bombing Kampala is even accurate. You remember the last time when a bomb blast went off, and then a few hours later, the police comes up with a statement, puts out the identities of these people, and many people are asking, how did you without even doing DNA or anything like that, you start saying this is so and so, this is so and so. Many questions asked, many people ask these questions, and of course people ask these questions.
David, you do not believe that there is an ADF force based in the Congo that is actual intent at harming Ugandans?
The point I'm making is...
No, but that's what I'm asking. You do not believe that there is a rebel force in the forests of Congo with an intent of attacking Uganda?
No, what I'm trying to say is basically that the narrative by the regime in Uganda cannot be... you cannot rely on it. And there are very many examples. There are reasons why. I mean, we're talking about the
You cannot rely on it even when they tell you we have an insurgency in Congo bent at fighting Uganda.
Because, listen, we've seen how they behave. That sometimes when they want to carry out something, when they have sinister motives or intentions, they will come up with some narrative. And for us who have been, for example, struggling, know this. I don't need to tell Ugandans very many examples.
So at this particular point,
I really want to explain something.
Davis, do you think this operation is part of a hoodwinking game by the UPDF into the Congo?
I am trying to build my narrative. I am saying that UPDF has gone to Congo before, carried out grave atrocities. The matter has gone to the International Court of Justice, and the International Court of Justice has condemned Uganda for atrocities, for plundering the Congo, for engaging in vile violations of human rights and other things. So I'm saying that the people watching us out there, many of them have questions. Because, I mean, and I want you to follow, you just go and ask the ordinary citizen on the street. If we had sufficient trust in government institutions, what you talked about is extremely important. We need to have a country where citizens can trust government institutions, where a spokesperson of the army comes out and citizens actually believe in what this person is saying. But the very spokespersons we're talking about are the same people who have come up previously to say, oh, we found guns in Honorable Chagulanyi's hotel room, and it turns to be a hoax. Someone comes and says, one Norbert Tariho hit a bomb at Chagulanyi, and it turns out to be a hoax. So the point I'm making is, for the people watching us out there, they have very many questions. And the state has not been able to sufficiently prove this. And you remember many questions that were being asked. They come and say, the police comes and says, we have arrested a terrorist from such and such a place. Another spokesperson comes up, gives a different narrative.
So, okay.
All these contradictions.
You have made your point. If I just may ask one more question on this issue. So when you have men and women in a Ugandan uniform across the border trying to fight terrorists, is the party you represent at this point taking a pause of political divide to support the Ugandan troops in the Congo?
We support the Ugandan troops. We support the Ugandan troops. We do not support the Ugandan regime, the regime in Uganda. You see, the men and women in uniform are people who just follow commands. They are ordered. When they say go into the Congo, they march into the Congo, sometimes putting themselves in harm's way. Under very, very difficult circumstances. And for me, the point I'm making is, at this point, that we need, the importance of having trust in government institutions is extremely important.
I get it.
And transparency. And related to that.
Okay, Ambassador Adonia.
Ambassador will come.
Can I respond? Can I come in?
Before he comes in, I want to make something very clear. The reason why, for example, our laws provide that before such missions are undertaken, the Parliament of Uganda should be informed, or at least if you go in, you immediately come and inform Parliament, is because of transparency.
Okay.
The people out there, the people of Uganda need to understand what exactly is going on. What is our strategy going in? What is our exit strategy? And this is not the first time. We went into the South Sudan. We went into, of course, the Somalia mission. You saw how we went in and what was pledged initially and how things turned out, and many other such instances where these things have happened.
You made your point.
Yeah.
Ambassador Adonia, I think David, when he talks about failure to inform Parliament, which is actually a constitutional requirement, why would the UPDF and the Commander-in-Chief totally disregard Parliament? But they are able and very fast to brief the United Nations Security Council. Parliament appropriates funds. It's the Ugandan taxpayers who are picking the bill.
Thank you, Patrick. Let me first of all say that Lewis, my brother Lewis, has not answered. He has not been categorical whether him and his party support the troops. At this critical time.
He says he supports the troops or not the regime.
That's semantics. Lewis, this is more than narratives. We are not here for sound bites. This is serious business. This is serious business of national security. And I expect you and your party, which is the main party in the opposition, to really put aside politics and support the troops. Don't try to, the troops don't command themselves. I've never seen troops anywhere that command themselves. They have a commander-in-chief. And there can be one commander-in-chief at a time. Let me tell you that we need to come together and unite. Let me also mention that the issue of Parliament, they are my colleagues in the Ministry of Defense and the Attorney General. And I have consulted. We are still within time, 20 days, according to the UPDF Act. And this will be done. This will happen. But let me tell you my docket from the UN. We have ticked all the boxes. You talk about the past when Uganda was sued. We have ticked all the boxes. We are there at the invitation of the government of DRC. Clear invitation, written, solid, legal, ground. And it's a gold standard in cross-border intervention. When the government invites a friendly government to intervene, it is expressing its sovereign right. And it is solid under international law. So let me tell you, this is the first time a government of DRC invites a neighboring country to deal with a common security threat. And this has been supported by the UN Security Council overwhelmingly. Resolution 2556 of the Security Council is coming to an end. Now we are negotiating a resolution. And in that resolution, I'm very sure that supporting this military operation against ADF will be endorsed by the Security Council under Chapter 7, which is binding to all countries. So we are on a solid legal basis internationally. And this has been carefully negotiated at the highest level by the presidents. So domestically, that is being worked on. And I think we need to look at our law. When you say parliament will be informed, I think these laws sometimes are made not envisaging this scenario. The element of surprise. You are not going to debate for a week in parliament that we are going to and the ADF or another enemy will be there waiting. I think as Ugandans, we can do better. We could learn from this experience. Well, the constitution
says you can do that within 72 hours after a separate attack.
That is an interstate war, when you go into fighting with another country. This is different. This is different than what was envisaged at that article of the constitution. And you remember when we went to South Sudan, the government later informed the parliament when we had the invitation of South Sudan. You know, when you're invited by another state, you are really not on a legal slippery.
I know that you are also in Equatorial Guinea, and the parliament doesn't know. There's a Ugandan contingent right now in Equatorial Guinea under the command of Colonel Ayebare.
Let's focus on DRC.
No, because I'm talking about the deployment of troops in total disregard of the rules and regulations of a country. And I'm giving you an example that right now are Ugandan troops in Equatorial Guinea.
I thank you for informing me.
Of course you know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I want to just quickly maybe respond to him. First of all, I want to agree entirely with him that these are not semantics. This is serious business, but I don't want you to look at it just in the context of, you know, state and the state. We are talking about lives of people involved in these matters. We're talking about international humanitarian law. We're talking about civilians in the provinces, in the areas where these troops are deployed. So it's serious business, and I'm not here just talk about semantics. This is not politics. The matters of the law, when we talk about the rule of law, when our laws require you to take certain steps, it is because the makers of those laws have carefully thought about them, and there's a reason why that happens. You've just talked about the fact that Parliament appropriates funds. They come every other day asking for supplementary budgets, classified expenditure, and that kind of thing. So when the law requires you to do certain things, it's just not about semantics. And it is very, very important, because that is the only way that the people of Uganda would get information, would feel that the government which rules over them actually is accountable to them. The element of surprise, and that's why I say that under certain circumstances, and that is why the laws envisage such circumstances where the parliament is in recess or whatever, and they say, you know, after that, come back and notify parliament, notify the representatives of the people, so that the representatives of the people know what is our objective, what is our exit strategy, what we intend to achieve in this kind of thing, and all that. So I wanted to make that clear, and to again emphasize that for us as NUP, we have made it clear. We stand with the men and women in uniform in this country, 100%. The only thing is that we know that a lot of times they are also forced in very, very uncomfortable situations. And maybe that's something we'll talk about later on, where we have a general sanctioned for grave, grave human rights violations. And we're talking about the past. There is still a matter being resolved at the ICJ. The government of the Congo, the same government he's talking about here, is asking for reparations way beyond
let's
$13 billion US dollars.
Let's look into that, because he has a point, Ambassador Adonia. The last time we were in the Congo, we didn't come out clean. Actually, when we left the Congo, that has now invited us to go into their country, was accusing us of plundering and pillaging their country, with a 10 billion reparation bill on the taxpayers' head for Ugandans. So we have a history, and our history is not good. Our precedent is bad when we go to the Congo. There is something to show for it. So are you telling us now that we have a brand new group of soldiers with a different mentality? What has changed?
Patrick, don't underestimate the intelligence of the Congolese leaders. They are aware of the past. They have a president that is democratically elected, President Tshisekedi. In his wisdom, he has decided to invite Ugandan troops to deal with a common threat. You know, when you go to Eastern DRC, when you listen to people, what ADF is doing to them, you know, rapes, killings. he will show you the whole album of atrocities. He has decided in his wisdom, countries, there is no country that is ahistorical. Countries have histories. Those countries Lewis likes quoting and visiting have committed genocides. There is no country that has no past. And the past does not define the future. You learn from the past mistakes and move on. And in this instant, you're talking about the ICJ. First of all, the case is prejudice. It's under appeal. We haven't known the outcome. Secondly, now I'm telling you that in this case, everything has been covered, learning from the past again. And that was a different context. When we went to Congo in the last, you remember Congo has progressed, and again I hope we will talk about the threat now of ADF. As in the past we had 7 armies from Africa fighting on different sides, and that was resolved. Congo went through a transition. Now there is a problem in Eastern DRC that neighbors us. It's the only challenge. There is a UN force that is tasked to protect civilians and build state institutions in DRC. And there is a government. The government in DRC has no arms embargo on it. It is a legitimate government. It has invited us to solve a common problem that affects both of us. And I think that should be the focus of the debate tonight.
That should be the focus, and I agree. So you haven't even reached the main base of the ADF rebels. You are maybe 18 kilometers from the Ugandan border. Are they going to sit and wait for you? We're talking about a country that is vast. A jungle in some cases like it is. Really. Even if you put 1 million soldiers in the Congo, they, boots, they can get lost within the Congo.
Let me tell you, Patrick and Lewis, actually ADF is weak than you think. They have been given a territory for 20 years. If a serious force or rebel group was given space for 20 years to mine gold, grow crops, smuggle, you remember Jamil Mukuru was arrested in Dar es Salaam living in luxury. They have not even expanded because of their methods of work, of killing civilians, of terrorism, of jihadism. So actually they are a weak force than, don't try to judge the UPDF operation in 1 week.
So
it's unfair to judge this operation in 1 week.
So why are you attacking? Why are you attacking this very weak force with the conventional weapons?
Let me tell you,
fighter jets and artillery pieces?
They are weak in a sense. Mark my word. You didn't listen. They are weak in a sense that they have not been expanded. Now with this firepower, they are in the forests. They are in the jungle now. Don't judge our operation in 1 week. I can tell you in 1 month or 2 months the story would be different. I've seen media reports that some of them have contacted the Amnesty Commission to surrender. This is scary.
But we have also seen images of columns of ADF moving away from their bases.
This is
They're going to disappear into the Congolese territory.
First of all, they are not friendly to civilians there. We are going to catch up with them, us and our Congolese partners, and the international community. Nobody likes these people, what they stand for and what they are doing. I can tell you, this is not a serious rebel movement that can disappear in those Congolese jungles, and we are going to catch up with them. Do not judge this operation in 1 week.
So, we are in North Kivu. What happens if the ADF scatters down into South Kivu, takes us closer to areas like Goma, and before we know it, overzealous ADF rebel fires a bullet into Rwanda? They have a right to hot pursuit. There is a likelihood that you can attract other forces into the Congo. What if they just go into South Kivu?
Patrick, this is not like a movie, an acted movie. Let me tell you, there is a Congolese government. There is a serious Congolese government on the ground that will deal with these scenarios. There is a UN force that is seeing all this. What we are envisaging can be dealt with very, very easily.
Ambassador Adonia Ayebare and David Louis Rubongoya, we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back.
General Mahanga said the major obstacle they have in
Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are David Louis Rubongoya, Secretary General of the National Unity Platform, and Uganda's top diplomat, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. You, just a few days ago, the United Nations Security Council was at State House in Tebe and you're briefing them. What exactly are you telling them? And is there any country in the region that has an exemption over Uganda's involvement in the Congo?
It was a discussion. We were telling them, they were also telling us. It was a discussion. What basically happened at that meeting was consensus that Uganda's involvement in DRC is legitimate and legal, and that how can we work together as the international community to support the joint operations between Uganda and DRC. And there were a lot of ideas how we can work with MONUSCO, which is the UN peacekeeping force on the ground, how we can avoid civilian casualties, like my brother Yus was saying, the humanitarian issues, to avoid, you know, a civilian's death in such a situation. And remember, the theater is crowded. There are three forces, MONUSCO, DRC and Uganda. In such a situation, you need coordination. So mostly it was around how do we coordinate. And all members of the Security Council, 9 of them that are based here, supported the operation. And they have trust that since we are working with DRC, going forward, and the issue of communication is legitimate, Lewis, huh? Will come. This is 1 week into the operation. You know, and this will really be addressed, and it will be done not by Uganda only, and by DRC as well, joint.
Lewis, there seems to have been some kind of a green light from the international community, the United Nations, and the region. This seems to be a diplomatic coup for Uganda.
Yeah, like I said, first of all, and that's why, as a national unity platform, we are mostly looking at the domestic affairs. Have we followed the law in Uganda? Are the citizens fully behind this operation? Is the government telling the truth, giving us the whole story of whatever is going on? You know, there are some things which we may just shy away from and not want to talk about. But I remember in 2018 when Jamil Mukulu came to court, he made a very, very serious allegation against the government of Uganda. And he said, you know what, it is the same government which supports ADF. And he said, why are they now persecuting me after doing these kinds of things? So all these are questions which an ordinary Ugandan has at the back of their minds. So it is not good for us to just put them away, especially given our history. Our history, which, you know, has been characterized by, you know, invading countries, and in most cases results have not been very good. I also want to tell you that regimes like the one in Uganda, in many cases, when they are faced with challenges at home, when their human rights credentials are being questioned, the economy is not doing well, and etc., etc. I mean, you can deny this, but you just go and read the Dictator's Handbook. Maybe you'll get some ideas about how these people operate. They then try to show their military might abroad, and we've seen this throughout history. So many people, political analysts and scholars, are also thinking about this. Could it be General Museveni's approach of, you know, he's faced with pressure at home, he ventures into the Congo, and he has done this over time. And, you know, and for us...
So, are you suggesting this is not a legitimate
he's praying
war or engagement in the Congo?
He's praying for it.
But my role here is to say that there are very many questions which we are not getting answers to. And that's what I'm trying to... I am representing...
In whatever you have been able to gather, David, do you find this an illegitimate cause for the UPDF to engage in Congo right now? I am
actually I want to say clearly here that it has not followed the law. It has not followed the law to the extent that it should. It has not been, the people of Uganda do not feel that this is a mission that is representative of their interests, because those interests should be put on the table clearly and transparently and explained to the people of Uganda, and the people of Uganda should be able to give a nod, and that is through parliament, because that's where elected representatives go. Of course, we have so many issues with the parliament and everything, but at least we should deal with the basics of the law. The other thing I want to talk about is, you know, there has been talk about the East African Standby Force and many other efforts in the past. How I wish this kind of intervention involved the region. General Museveni is always, of course, talking about East African integration and that kind of thing, and his regime. But where you find that most of these, of course, you know, we are not on good terms with many of these our neighbors. again, because of the policy or the politics pursued by this regime. So it becomes very difficult for us to have, for example, all the countries in East Africa come together and say, we are now going to pursue this as a common enemy or as a common threat to the region. Because it's not, if indeed the objective is legitimate, it wouldn't just be a threat to Uganda alone, but it would be a threat to the entire region. But where you find that, because of reasons which are well known, Uganda is not, the border between Uganda and Rwanda has been closed, for how long now, for example. And we're saying that these are things we should deal with. These are things we should deal with.
So, okay.
Can I come in?
Yeah.
My brother Ruiz, let's really focus on the issue at hand, which is DRC and ADF. How I wish we had an East African standby army. I share the same sentiments, but this is a bilateral arrangement, and international law allows it. A nation state is not about to disappear in the name of regional integration. Congo is a nation state with sovereign rights. It is under the threat of ADF. This is not, let's not go into think tank mode, of handbook of dictators, of, we can go to a think tank and debate about this. This is serious. Let me tell you, a sovereign DRC government has decided to invite a friendly country. And you say that we are at loggerheads with many of our neighbors. Can you mention them? DRC, we are not, at least this has demonstrated we are not at loggerheads with DRC. We are not at loggerheads with Tanzania. We are not loggerheads with Kenya. So don't say many. So really, what is that? We should focus on the question at hand. And you have asked a good question. Whether NUP and Lewis here in the studio really support this operation against the ADF. We can debate how Parliament has been briefed, and I can tell you in the coming days and weeks, this is going to be done. This had an element of surprise. It was urgent. The threat was present and clear, and action had to be taken before. So and going forward, that will happen. But we shouldn't, let me use this phrase, the perfect shouldn't be the enemy of the good. Yeah. The good is dealing with the security threat. I know you're a perfectionist, my brother, but in this world where we are dealing with terrorism, perfection.
Good is the enemy of great. You need great things to be done. But let me look again, shed a light again on how we have worked in the Congo. The last time we were there, we ended up aligning ourselves with some warlords. I remember Jean-Pierre Bemba. I remember some groups. And it's not only ADF that is in the Congo, Eastern Congo, in South and North Kivu. There are many other militias there. You have the Lendu militia, you have the Mai Mai, you have the Hema, everybody. You have different chiefdoms. I mean, if the UPDF has a characteristic in the past, had a characteristic in the past of aligning with these warlords, these militias, how is it going to be now?
Patrick, I've been at it for a long time. Let me tell you what is the problem of Eastern DRC. You have two kinds of negative forces. You have the domestic Congolese, the Lendus, the Hemas. Kodeko is a Lendu armed group. And you have the foreign groups like ADF and Interahamwe. Those are the two main ones, ADF and Interahamwe. The local Congolese groups are being worked on by the government. There are all sorts of local dialogues. Those are not our threat. And in the past, again, the context was different. We also, there were how many?
The last time, the last time we were in the Congo, we were fighting against a man called Thomas Lubanga.
There were 7 countries.
Yeah, but Thomas Lubanga was a local militia leader in the Congo.
Because the intervention then was to secure our borders, but in a different context. Now we have a good relationship over the years of investment, diplomatic and otherwise. We have a good relationship with DRC. We are trying to deal with ADF. We have no problem with Congolese actors on the ground, wherever they are. The government of DRC is handling that. We are dealing with ADF. The foreign armed groups have to be dealt with for Congo to be stable, by Congo and the region and the international community working together.
The last time you withdrew from Congo, you came back with a battalion of women. Sometimes I wonder, how do men and women who have gone to fight in a war theater end up engaging and eloping with Congolese women? I mean, again, a show of total indiscipline. It happened. They came, a big force of them.
Yeah, now, Patrick, I like your shows for some right moments like this. Let's see what happens this time. I think this time we are going to, UPDF is a very professional force. This time, the threat is defined and focused, and we are working closely with our Congolese. I keep on insisting, we are working closely with our Congolese partners, which was not the case in the past. A Congolese government, for the first time, working with us. All these mistakes you can point, and if you want to mention mistakes in any enterprise, including war, you'll find them. But going forward, you're going to be surprised. The involvement of the international community, MONUSCO, in making sure that human rights violations are avoided, making sure that, we are working together is a game changer.
Well, first of all, I'll just quickly say that, he keeps saying that, the ambassador keeps saying that, let's wait and see how it will end. I can also predict, without any doubt, with no iota of doubt, that we'll see how it will end. Before long, you'll hear them plundering, stealing. I mean, this has happened before, and we're about to see it. Almost everything. It's just like every project they've done here. They come and promise anything, but we know how it normally ends. So I can predict without any doubt that it will end in that. The other thing is that he keeps saying that, we should just focus on this particular mission. But, we cannot discuss issues in isolation. This is just not about going into a country, locating ADF, uprooting them, and then going back. Like I've said, there are humanitarian issues. He's talking about avoiding, civilian casualties, observing human rights, which they are not observing at home, which, they are known internationally. This is, Uganda is now in the news because one of the senior army officers has been sanctioned for grave human rights violations. And, our security forces have, if you just bring about, you just go and Google UPDF and you'll see what first comes out there, what Uganda is known internationally for. So these are things that we need to focus on and not just sweep under the carpet. The other thing, of course, you've just talked about it, women. I don't know if he has read the ICJ case, the ICJ matter. And if you look at it, the same arguments he's making, we went in to do this, the same arguments were made in that case, actually. And if you look at the arguments that the regime at the time, the state of Uganda was making at the ICJ, they had all these legal justifications for their involvement. That's why it's on appeal. No. You just mentioned...
Come on, the government of DRC didn't invite us then.
Yes,
they didn't.
It did not.
They have invited this now.
Are you then suggesting... Are you saying... No, I've read the case. Even today I reviewed the case. Are you saying...
reviewing history.
Are you saying that Uganda did not have put up a strong defense legally to say that we were there legitimately?
That matter is not concluded.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm just talking about the arguments that Uganda was raising at the time. And of course, court disagreed because their involvement and the atrocities they committed did not have any bearing on the law.
In this agreement with Congo, have they allowed you an area in which to operate? Because what happens if the rebels scatter in other parts, go to as far as Lubumbashi, Gadolito, whatever, what happens? Because I remember when Sudan accepted us to go into South Sudan during the time of fighting Konyi, there is a certain area they had given us, a certain latitude that we're not supposed to cross, hunt your people around there. So what happens? They are in Congo. They can shift to any part of Congo. Do you follow them to any part of Congo?
These agreements are reviewed from time to time, depending on the operational needs. And they are strategically reviewed and tactfully reviewed all the time. Let me first, I thought we were making progress and we had avoided politics, but Lewis is a politician. He kept on playing politics with our troops on a foreign mission. Let me tell you, at this time, me and you, we should avoid being quizzlings. You know what quizzlings are?
Yeah.
We should avoid being quizzlings at a time like this, and really put politics aside and support our troops. Let me tell you, again, every country, every operation like this, every relationships between countries have histories, and people learn from mistakes and correct them. Let me tell you, you'll be surprised. You are predicting doom, but you'll be surprised. The government of DRC, I have seen, the international community involvement, the transparency involved by all actors now, this operation is going to be a gold standard on how you deal with terrorism in the region going forward. 20 years from you, me and you will be seated here or somewhere having coffee, and we'll say, "Woo," and we will use it. It will be used as reference both by legal scholars and practitioners. I can tell you, to secure commitment from a country inviting you, you know how they dealt with ISIS. You know how ISIS was dealt with. Iraq invited countries like the US and others to deal with ISIS. This is not the first time. This is how things are done to deal with terrorism.
But we can also understand that ADF being in the Congo, it becomes Kampala's headache than it can be Kinshasa's headache. Because where they are like 2,000 kilometers away from Kinshasa and maybe 500 kilometers to Kampala. Even though that is Congo and a sovereign state, it is more of a Ugandan problem than a Congolese problem in Kinshasa.
Absolutely.
So even when they're inviting you because they are more or less like, not that bothered about that part of the world.
They are bothered. Their people are dying.
They have the geographical depth for them to deal with their issues. Even if they wanted to march to Kinshasa, it would take them forever.
President Tshisekedi cares about people in Eastern DRC on our border. They are his people. They are being raped and murdered by ADF and other foreign armed groups. He cares about it. It's not about strategic depth. This is not a strategic classroom. They are worried about the Eastern DRC. You know, you have heard about trade, roads that are going to be done. You have learned that DRC is joining EAC. You have learned about that. They are almost joining EAC. These are regional, and I like the title, geopolitical. These are real geopolitical issues. ADF, organizations, we can disagree on many things, Luis, and that's fine. But we cannot be sending signals to ADF.
But you understand that when there's chaos in Eastern Congo, it's more of a headache for Kampala than it is for Kinshasa.
For Eastern DRC as well. Unless you have a government in Kinshasa that does not care about its people in the East. And I think the government in Kinshasa cares about their people in the East. And we cannot sit here and send a signal to ADF that we are divided.
Patrick.
Despite the mistakes like informing Parliament and others, which I agree are legitimate, we have to send a signal that they have to be dealt with. Then we can resolve our disagreements later.
Patrick, I did mention that if we were operating under a regime that is transparent, that is legitimate, that the citizens have a lot of trust in, definitely this is the time when all the citizens actually would be united or should be united, in support of the forces. But like I've told you, we have a past, we have a history to this issue, and we've seen how they behave. And for me, I don't want Ambassador Adonia to continue saying, we're dealing with semantics, politics, etc., etc., because we know how this regime operates. And for me, that is the background which from which I'm approaching this issue. That these are people who can potentially come up with something. For example, they talked about constructing roads in the DRC several months back. Now, many citizens are asking themselves this question. You wanted to construct roads, then there were terrorist attacks here, and then immediately you just launched attacks in DRC, and then you immediately went in to construct the roads. So there are many questions which people are asking. So you cannot detach politics from this conversation, because...
So you don't believe, Davis, that having infrastructure development in Eastern Congo could be of economic value for Uganda?
That's why we're talking about having transparency in our operations. That's why we're talking about engaging the leaders. That's why we are saying that... Yes,
but because I saw President Tshisekedi and President Museveni, on a groundbreaking ceremony for constructing a road in their country. And that's but the issue is, doesn't it make economic sense to construct a road into Eastern Congo, a country that has almost no infrastructure, yet it is depending on Kampala?
Do you see, when I talk about engaging the leaders, I'm not talking about General Museveni and meeting with another president of a country and agreeing on, beginning a project. I'm saying that a government which really cares about the law and cares for the people and everything should make sure that there is consultation. This is not...
Yeah, but this issue was discussed in the floor of Parliament.
It was introduced. It was not debated. And if you remember, many members of Parliament were completely opposed to the idea. Because, again, we just wake up one day and hear that now there's a proclamation, a presidential proclamation, we are going to construct roads in the Congo.
So is that a bad idea?
That's why I'm saying that it should be debated. For me, I'm just saying that...
Yeah, on the side of which side of the debate do you agree on this? Is it a bad idea?
We need to first of all understand the cost-benefit analysis. That's why we talk about debate. That's why we talk about consultation of citizens.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking on this debate, David, where do you stand?
I'm saying that we do a cost-benefit analysis. Try to understand, why must we be Ugandans?
At this point, you have no idea.
And then we should be also asking questions. What is our shortfall in this country? How far have we gone with constructing our own roads in this country before we say that now we are going to start constructing roads in a different country? You saw what happened just, I think, last week when General Museveni went and opened a school and named it after himself in Tanzania. And many Ugandans were upset because while he went and constructed a school, named it after himself using, of course, public resources, the schools here in Uganda are a mess. And many people... where you monitored social media and people are saying, we are comparing the schools in this country vis-a-vis the school he built in a different country. So that is why, if NUP was in power, one of the things we would be doing is to be as transparent as possible, to make sure that there's citizen engagement, to make sure that Parliament is functional and members of Parliament, for example, can sit and debate a matter as important as that. And we say, what do we stand to gain as a nation, not as an individual, not as a president of a country, saying that this is what I think should happen or not happen. Right. So that's how we would approach it.
How do you respond?
This guy is doing politics, of course, which is okay. He's a politician. Huh? Let me tell you, the issue of the roads. I think if you look at the figures of trade between Uganda and DRC, they are mind-boggling, despite the chaos in Eastern DRC. You know, you ask any business person downtown here that trade with Congo, those roads really make economic sense, and the money was appropriated by Parliament, you know. And he talks about legitimacy. NUP is in that Parliament, you know, and they are part and parcel of the state. You are part of the state that you call illegitimate, and your job, actually your job is to have informed opinion and go there and challenge some of the things. You have a platform. And those roads really are not going on to serve economic, they are going to be security roads. You talked about our tanks and equipment getting stuck. I think, let me tell you, you know, you talked about regionalism. President Museveni building a school in Tanzania is a symbolic gesture. You know, we're going to have a pipeline, the longest pipeline in the world between us and Tanzania, the oil pipeline. The benefits compared to that school is really minute. You know, the
benefits to who?
To Uganda.
Oh.
Tanzania, do you know how many?
Have you had him say my oil, for example?
No.
And
let's have one at a time.
I'm not going to play politics. You know, let's really look at the ADF. Let's look at the regional politics. ADF. I agree with you that ADF is a bad actor. Do we agree? Is ADF a bad actor, yes or no?
Of course. I mean like I said, terrorism. Actually, I said that terrorism is of international concern.
And I know you're a lawyer. You know a term called just cogence?
Yeah. What I can say,
genocide are on the same plate.
Yeah, definitely.
And we must condemn
and there's no one. I mean, at the start of this show, I say that terrorism. But you see, I want you to understand that terrorism in many parts of the world has been used as a pretext for doing so many things. And I can just give you articles, papers written about this. And I've written myself an article about this, how the fight against terrorism can be used to trample human rights, to trample the rule of law, to do so many things. So while we all condemn terrorism, generally, I mean, it's a jus cogens norm, definitely all of us are opposed to it, but I am saying that there are questions which ordinary citizens of Uganda are asking, and I'm here to re-echo them.
And my president and government will explain this. Make no mistake, he's a good explainer. He will explain this. These are operational matters. We are early into the operation. And I think the take home here is that we have really dealing with a neighboring country like Congo that is going soon to be a member of the East African community. And if this can be an example of how we should deal with common challenges like terrorism, you know, really we should welcome this and support it, but also raise the issues you are raising. I agree.
So now we are in the middle of a war against rebels in another country. Uganda's spy master is having sanctions on him by another nation of you know, not just another nation, a superpower in the United States. The United States today is holding, is it a democracy summit or something like that, and that's where you live in New York. Uganda is not invited. I mean, how are we being viewed by the international community in this region?
International community.
You are the top diplomat.
International community is a wider term than one country. Let me tell you, you are talking about the sanctions of General Ayebare.
Yes.
For transparency purposes, who happens to be my young brother.
Well, it's good you say that, because
for transparency purposes, I know you. I preempted you.
So your brother, General
but that's immaterial. Intelligence sharing and strategic relationship with countries are not done by one individual. And let me tell you, these are unilateral sanctions. They are not international sanctions. Each country, and here Louis will agree with me as a lawyer, each country has a right to impose sanctions on anybody for their reasons. They can come up, every country has under international, Uganda can impose unilateral sanctions on anybody. The Americans have a right to do this. I know Louis and his friends are celebrating this, which is okay, it's politics. But seriously, I haven't talked to General Ayebare, but what I know is that it is not preventing him from doing his work. It will never. And this is not a one-man's show. The U.S. is our ally, and we continue to work together. They are part of the UN Security Council. They have supported us in AMISOM. They will continue. I'm sure they will continue doing this, you know, despite all this. But it's a local story. It has to generate a debate.
There have been presidents in the region who have expressed concern that the Ugandan military intelligence is pursuing the nationals of Rwanda or wherever, you know, torturing them or even killing them. So if the United Nations sanctioned the top spy master,
the United Nations.
I mean the United States. If the United States sanctions our spy master, somebody in this region must be pumping champagne.
Are they pumping champagne? I don't know. I don't know. And I think we should isolate this debate from the topic tonight.
No.
And what I can say is that the spy master is fine. He will continue doing his job as long as the appointing authority wants him to do so. I don't see these unilateral sanctions. If they are international, or if they are sanctions against Uganda, I would really, we will debate whether it is, you know, it's deliberating or not. This is not.
Yeah,
and
but
business as usual
unilateral sanctions from a country that you're dealing with that is giving you financial and military support. I mean, you find yourself in a very difficult position. This is not just.
But also, you need to quantify that. Let's not throw these faces. You know, financial. You know, the U.S. supports us, is our partner in the health sector, and many other social and economic fields. They help us in AMISOM, but they don't buy us arms as people think.
I've seen them training your soldiers.
For AMISOM, for peacekeeping in Somalia, which is a common project.
If you want to have been to Fort Leavenworth, to train?
Yeah, but UPDF also trains elsewhere, not only in the US. It's not the sole training power. They train everywhere. So we have a good relationship with the US, actually excellent. And I'm sure it will continue.
How come they didn't invite you for the Democracy Summit?
That is their prerogative. We have not invited them for many things. We have not invited them for many things.
The meaning of excellence when you're being left out.
And democracy is a very controversial. There is no definition of democracy at the UN. It's not agreed upon. democracy, according to the US, means different to different nations. That's why democracy is not in the UN Charter.
So when you look at the other people that have been sanctioned, they're from Syria, from Yemen, from Iran, from Uganda. The others are more or less considered rogue states, and that's where we are now.
No, come on. I told you these are unilateral sanctions. Countries.
I'm giving examples, other countries whose officers have been sanctioned.
Yeah,
Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Uganda. That's our category now. That's our class now.
The US, no, the US has decided they can think about us whatever they want to think about us. It's unilateral. It's unilateral. Of course, we are disappointed. The UPDF issued a statement, and we will move on.
Adonia Ayebare and David Louis Rubongoya. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll open the line so that you too can be a part of this discussion. You can pick a phone and you see the numbers on the screen. Call us and tell us what you think about this Operation Shujaa. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Ambassador Adonia Ayebare, Uganda's top diplomat in New York at the United Nations, and Mr. Louis Davis Rubongoya, who is the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform, and we're discussing Uganda's engagement in the Congo. I just wanted, you know, because you sit at the United Nations, our permanent representative there, when you look at the region where we are, we seem to be having a tumultuous region now, you know, from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia with Tigray, to Sudan, with everybody who, you know, people on the streets rioting. South Sudan, they have created 1 million refugees or more into Uganda. Now Congo, you know, what is going on? We thought we had lived the 90s where we saw all these kind of things happening, and now we are back. What's going on?
Thank you. Let me start with the Great Lakes region, which is the topic tonight, with DRC specifically. You remember 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, we had 7 national armies fighting in the DRC. They withdrew. There was a transitional government, and elections were organized. They held, you know, transited from one president to another, and the country is peaceful apart from the east because of bad actors like ADF and other foreign armed groups, which are going to be dealt with this goodwill of the current government of DRC. So DRC really is on the right track. It's joining the East African community. Then the Horn, which is, you talked about Ethiopia, South Sudan. South Sudan is also turning the corner. They have had a transitional government now. They are integrating forces. They are working on the constitution. The processes are slow, but they are working towards elections in 2023. The challenge, of course, is Ethiopia, but the region is involved, the African Union, you know, former President Obasanjo. And again, when this, and you know, Lewis was saying that we need to look at the past. Africa has faced even serious challenges of survival that threatened its survival. You remember the Southern Africa, apartheid South Africa, where you had the regime, an apartheid regime with nuclear weapons, ready to drop them on the continent, on Southern Africa, how it was resolved quickly. The challenge, I think, of the Sahel and the Horn, as it relates to Ethiopia and Somalia, are very challenging, but Africa has overcome. And I think there are processes, and again, my president keeps on talking about the Trinity, the local, the regional, and the international working together. If that formula is followed, I think, it's challenging as it is, Africa has overcome, it will overcome again.
So what makes you think that this time around you're going actually to give a deadly blow to the ADF or the rebel groups, negative forces in the Congo, because you can go there, overrun their bases, ban them and stuff like that. They will scatter into the Congo, regroup again, and we are back at the same thing? Because it has ever happened that you go, but you don't totally neutralize.
Let me tell you.
You have Mukulu in the Ugandan prisons, but that did not stop the emergence of Sheikh Musa Baluku or Benjamin Kisokoranyo.
The game changer now is the cooperation of governments. We never received this. There was no cooperation of the government of DRC. You remember? The negotiations kept on under the previous president and others, and they could not allow that this was a common problem. Now, the window of opportunity with the current government, this is a game changer. And the Congolese on themselves are not weak. They are not inviting us from a position of weakness. They're inviting us from a spirit of cooperation to deal with a common problem. And that's a game changer. You had also an international community that was cynical, that talked like Lewis here. Oh, you plundered Congo, you did this, we cannot trust. Now, they have coalesced around our cooperation with DRC. And they are not playing a negative role. They are playing a supportive role. The entire Security Council, you are going to see the resolution that will come out of the Security Council that really supports this kind of approach. And Congo is building capacity to deal with, even if they went to Lubumbashi. First of all, the population. Let me tell you, ADF is so unpopular that they cannot even go to Beni and get water. They can only merit in the jungle, and you cannot survive there. You cannot survive there.
We're talking about a group that has lived there for 20 years.
Because they were unchallenged. They were unchallenged, my brother.
We're talking about a country that has failed to manage some parts of their own territories. We're talking about a country where we have the United Nations force there for 20 years, and it's not even getting results. We're talking about a vast country called the DRC. Yeah. Maybe the second biggest country on the continent.
Absolutely. But the game changer now is the ADF. You know, it depends on an individual armed group. The ADF it doesn't have an African agenda. It has, sort of an Islamist agenda that is out of tune even with mainstream Islam. They want to impose Sharia, and this part of the world is not going to work. DRC, you should talk to the Congolese were cheering UPDF as it entered Congo, as it entered in the small towns, because of what they have gone through with ADF. ADF is isolated. I will not be surprised that in the coming weeks, most of them will surrender, and that will be the end of the story. Because they were there 20 years, because they were not challenged. They were sitting there in camps, mining gold. Their leaders were living in luxury in countries like Tanzania. The party is over, almost, for ADF.
These guys are just thumping immediately before they...
Well, that's what I said. That's what they always say before, of course, tables turn and then the reality sets in. And I cannot wish.
Are you a pessimist?
That's what I'm coming to. I don't want to come off as, like I said, for me the most important question here in this debate, we are not tackling the most important issue, and the most important issue is in perception. For example, Patrick Kamara, you've seen the videos coming through on social media, people saying, oh, you know what, these are ADF guys, and someone comes, I'm so-and-so, son of so-and-so, I'm going for this operation, if I die, God should take me to heaven or something like that. These are the videos that are coming out. And then on the side of UPDF, very many videos coming out of soldiers in very heroic, carrying out some heroic stunts or whatever, pictures with goggles and that kind of thing. No. What I'm trying to say is that it's a game of perception, and there are many questions, there are legitimate questions.
Actually, the world runs on perception.
And someone asks a question about what kind of operation is this, where people go and then all of a sudden you're getting videos coming out on social media with people claiming to be ADF, posing for pictures, for videos. These are the questions that people are asking. But like I said, if we follow the law, if we cooperate with international actors, if we make sure that the domestic laws are followed, we definitely should all unite in the fight against terrorism and defeat it.
This has been long coming, eh?
It has been long coming.
That's what I said.
He's a good man.
The challenge is, of course, like I said, he's talking about legitimacy. If you have a regime which operates the way these people operate, definitely. And like I said, you'll see, for me, what I'm talking about, what is likely to happen is not, that ADF cannot be defeated or something. But for me, my main concern is human rights violations, plundering the Congo, going in there and never coming out, even after the objective is concluded, coming back with women, like you said, raping people. These are the things I'm mostly concerned about. And of course, the questions of the law, the fact that you need to make sure that the parliament is informed, that the people of Uganda have given permission for you to go there, and all other things are taken care of. Of course, I know that the ambassador may not even know some of just like I'm also asking many questions, he might also have similar questions, because I'm sure he's not in operations. He may not really know the extent.
Just hold on your point there. Let me involve other Ugandans who are trying to reach us by phone. And the numbers on the screen, you can pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think. I'm going to pick the very first caller online, and you tell us your name and where you're from, and also if you have a specific question to the panelists here, please let us know. Hello. I'm told I have a call online. Hello. And should you disagree with the panelists tonight, that's okay, that's acceptable. It's called debate, but just disagree with respect. Okay, so at this point, you're not able to tell us, of course you cannot know when we're going to exit, but since you said the mission is security, neutralizing the ADF, if the ADF proves to be a stubborn enemy, that means you're going to stay longer.
That's if. That is if. Huh? That's all speculating at this time. This is not the first time. I mean, we had a mission in South Sudan, which was to defend Juba and make sure that there is no genocide, and we executed it and withdrew in agreement with the South Sudan government. There is a precedent of keeping our word, have missions that are timely, the timelines are clear, and we have respected that in South Sudan, and I'm sure we'll do it in, there is a precedent, and we'll do it in, when you are dealing with the government and agreeing with the government, the host government, everything is discussed, everything is on the table. Those countries are not going to allow bad things to happen. And I think you should have faith in the UPDF. UPDF is look at, we are not even an Islamic country. Look at how we are well received in Somalia. Apart from a recent incident where UPDF committed crimes and was sentenced. How? Have you been in Somalia? You should, you should ask Somalis. Al-Shabaab was controlling Mogadishu. And we kicked them out. And we have done well. And we are internationally acclaimed. Your friends in the West support us in AMISOM.
But you see, and that's, maybe I should just throw a comment on something that, you see when you say that you have international acclaim and that kind of thing, that's maybe you're talking about something of the past. But now what the security forces in Uganda are known for internationally is not what he's talking about.
What are they known for? For
torture, for human rights violations.
Where?
I mean, just I told you to do a simple search on the internet. But also, you know that you've been at the ICJ. The ICJ is the highest court internationally, the court that adjudicates cases between nations. We've been to the ICJ, and the ICJ has condemned us for those atrocities that you're talking about. We filed several cases and matters before international fora, the ICC inclusive and others. So,
where have they gone?
I mean, some of these are under
frivolous.
No, come on. And when you talk about sanctions, for example, that you're talking about, you can come here and use flowery diplomatic language. You try to be politically correct. But it's extremely important for us to think about the victims of some of these violations. Ambassador, I would expect you to think about the children, the women, the men who have been killed on the streets of Uganda, have been tortured, the young men who are abducted and taken in drones all over the country. I think if the United States decide to sanction an individual who, in their opinion, has been the face of some of these violations, all of us should come here and say that is a step in the right direction.
All right. Gentlemen, our time is out now. I'm going to give each one of you to do your parting shots. Let me begin with you, Davis, and then I come to Adonia.
Yeah, I think my parting shot would be, again, to emphasize that we must adhere to the rule of law in everything that we do. And to reiterate that the National Unity Platform does not in any way condone terrorism, which is a subject of international concern, but that there are so many questions with few answers. We have been, for example, talking about the clear profiling of Muslims in this country. A sheikh was recently killed in front of his children in this country. And of course the claim was that he's ADF. And many other, clerics who have been shot dead under unclear circumstances. Others tortured. You remember the victims, the suspects in the General Katumba case and others. So let's adhere to the rule of law. The fight against terrorism should not cloud us to certain basic humane principles that we should follow. And as a country, we must try so hard to create good relations with our neighbors and make sure that if we detect or if there is a common threat, we all unite as a region and confront that common challenge.
Thank you. Ambassador, your parting shot.
Thank you, Patrick. My parting shot is really nice seeing you, Lewis. And it was a pleasure really being with you on the panel. But also to say that remember the victims of ADF, the sheikhs that have been, the Muslim leaders that have been killed here. The security, Afande Kawesa, Major Chigundu, General Katumba was almost killed by ADF. This is real. And we need to really, as a country, come together that if this is allowed to continue, we will all be affected. And also to end by saying that this operation, and Louis is talking about being on terms with neighbors. This cooperation with DRC is a game changer. It's a gold standard of how we should relate as neighbors to deal with common challenges. And this operation against ADF needs the support of everybody. And I'm glad that Louis through him, his party is on board in condemning terrorism. And
condemn terrorism, of course.
Absolutely. And we should all support our troops and the government, which includes Parliament, where you are, the state, to really deal with this. And we do politics after that.
I want to thank you so much, gentlemen, David Louis Rubongoya and Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. But most of all, I also want to thank you who has been watching this program for your good company. I believe that if we're together in this fight, there's no UPDF, there's no them and us. We're in this together, and if our men and women in uniform cross the border, I think it is important for all of us to rally behind the flag, because they are into harm's way. These are daughters and sons of Uganda that need our prayers and need our support. Good night, and God bless Uganda.